I'm going to say something today that's going to upset a few people. I don't care if it does. Partially that's my job as part of being informative and just all round fun to listen to. I'm about to tell you that PHEVs, plug-in hybrids, are a disaster. So why are PHEVs so common and popular in Australia right now? That's because they get the novated lease benefits, which are cutting off in April 25, where if you get one, you don't have to pay stamp, GST. Makes them really cheap to novated lease. So you can get that RAV4 you've always been dreaming of. You know, in reality, the PHEV is just like a Band-Aid bridge learning curve on the way to a full battery electric vehicle, that they don't come without their fair share of very serious problems that you don't hear about a lot in the press. Now, let me clarify. A PHEV is very different from how do I explain it? Like a series hybrid or a non-plug-in hybrid, something like the videographer's Nissan Note, which basically uses a petrol engine as a genset. And that's how it charges the battery. And it's always running, starting, stopping, cutting in and out to keep the battery charged at a certain level. And of course, when you're on full demand, it'll kick in to make sure you can't flatten that thing so quick, you know what I mean? And just be running with the puny amount of kilowatts that the petrol motor puts out. A PHEV will plug in. It's normally got a smallish battery that'll give you, in some instances, it's normally around 20 to 40 kilometres of range, in some instances up to 100 kilometres of range. And here's the issue. They're bloody complex things because of it, right? Have a look at the complexity of the things. There's a lot of moving parts there, but you've got a full EV and a full petrol car stuffed in one, right, which is a bit tricky. It's bloody heavy. And the weird bit is, apart from those odd occasions when people are out in the country and, you know, you don't want to stop at a charger, all the people I know with PHEVs game the system, right? They try and drive them as gently as they can to stop the petrol engine ever kicking in and starting up. They try and just use electric range possible, then run and plug it in and do that 20 or 30 Ks between trips and always keep it plugged in. So they drive it as a pure EV, but they're carrying around all of this petrol weight driveline, which is just stupid. Now, there are issues with all of this complexity and gaming the system too. I have an actual story about it. When you game the system like this and you go 4 months without the petrol engine kicking in, you know, because you've been driving like a miser on bits of electricity here and there, you do some awful, awful things to that engine when it does finally start, if it finally starts. I know a certain chap who had a Mercedes. It was a big one, hybrid, plug-in and an S-Class, I think, and he gamed the system. And then one day when it went to start on petrol, it was 1,100 Ks on the same tank of fuel, apparently, just by bloody EV and all. Because they got no power when they're running PHEV only, because they've got pathetic electric motors normally and pathetic little batteries. When it went to start, it wouldn't start. It actually had to be towed to Mercedes service, needed spark plugs, injectors were blocked. The thing had been sitting and not running. So it's not good for them. So to run your PHEV properly, you've got to keep firing up the petrol engine, which then kind of just defeats the point of making it a plug-in hybrid in the first place. It really is a confusing situation. And again, Justin's Nissan Note, that makes a lot more sense because the thing kicks in and out all of the time. It's only got like a 1.5 kilowatt hour or 1.2 kilowatt hour battery. So it's always just got to run from time to time at low RPM, low load to just keep that thing topped up, which is not bad for the motor. So if you're going to have a motor, it's got to run. Otherwise, it just doesn't make any sense, right? Look, there are good things about PHEVs. And like I said, it's a good bridge for the dummies to start with because, you know, it gets them used to the fact that they can run an electric car, and it gets them used to the fact that with a tiny little battery, I can actually go this far and make it work. Imagine if the car was 500 kilograms lighter and the battery was 3 times the size. Imagine how far I could go then. So it's a good sort of like it's a weaning process. We're weaning them off, dead dinosaur dongers and onto electrons. And it works. I know many people that have switched from PHEVs to full EVs and gone, well, that made a lot of sense. Why didn't I do that sooner? So why are they selling so many? Quite simple. In Australia, because they get a great tax credit. And there are people like, I like me petrol cars, and they can buy a petrol car still and get all this money off from Mr. Albanese because it's got an EV component to it. But as of April next year, they're gone off the list. PHEVs are no longer eligible for any of the tax breaks that a full BEV gets. So that's something you got to consider and think about. And you'll see sales of hybrids at that point plummet because they simply can't manage the cost effectiveness in a lease term that a BEV does. So look, I hope that explains it to you and I hope that makes a bit of sense. It was clear as mud to me. But if you've got any questions, this was a fairly serious video, apart from the booger eating bits and dead dinosaur dongers, but we've got to throw that in to keep you entertained. If you've got any questions, drop them below and I will come back to you personally and answer. So thank you once more for watching Range Anxiety TV.